Michelle, can I say, I think you've got a lovely accent. I've been listening, and
Thank you.
I think obviously, I think that the problem is the person that's criticised you. That's bad etiquette because you shouldn't say to somebody that you don't understand them or that they've got a terrible accent. You just don't do that.
Well, what he actually said, I'll call you Mr. Harrold because we're doing it properly because you're into your etiquette. So,
Okay.
Mr. Harrold, he told me that I quote, have deformed vowels. I almost said
Well,
deformed bowels then, but I don't. Deformed
That's
vowels.
another element.
well, ma'am. After that comment, I think you'd have the latter actually. But I mean, I think the reality is, as I said, you shouldn't really kind of criticise somebody for the accent because the great thing about this country is we've got so many accents. I mean, you can hear my accent. I'm Scottish, and people have said to me over the years, have I had to, when working for the royal family, did I have to change my accent? And yes, I mean, there was occasions that. Including the Prince of Wales and the Queen, sometimes didn't always understand my accent if I spoke too quickly, if I get excited, or I sometimes, when I get excited, or if I'm trying to explain something, I can start to speed up. But luckily, the Royals always thought it was quite funny if I suddenly kind of went very Scottish, broad Scottish. But I have learned over the last couple of years, especially working in the media, to kind of slow down. But I haven't changed my accent. I mean, I'm proud of being Scottish, as I'm sure you're proud of your accent. And I think people should be proud of their accents. That's what makes this country great, having so many different backgrounds and cultures and accents.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Grant, because we had this dialogue quite publicly on Twitter, and I got quite a few people contacting me privately saying that they are from my neck of the woods, so from Hull, where we do pronounce, like the letter we pronounce that quite elongated. I accept that. And I had quite a few people contacting me saying that they have desperately tried to change their accent because people have stereotypes when they hear certain accents. And I think that's a real shame.
It is, and you know, I learned from a young age when I started off as a butler. One of my very kind of first positions, I remember it was brought up about my accent, and it wasn't that I should change it. It was just that it could be tricky because being Scottish, we use a lot of words that people, if I can say, in other parts of the country wouldn't understand. And I remember once speaking to this a secretary of one of my employers, and I said something about I think I used the word messages, and in Scotland, if you're saying messages, that's doing your shopping. And she couldn't understand me. And eventually, I'm trying to be polite. I apologized. I said, I'm terribly sorry about my accent. And she said, I know it's ghastly, isn't it? And I've never forgot that. I thought ghastly, I thought okay. But after that, I did take it on board because it was a little bit hurtful, and I thought, well, surely I can't be that bad. And as I said, all I've done is just maybe slow it down a little bit so that people understand me. But as I said, I'm proud of my accent, and I think this is what's. It's a shame when people do criticize other people. For the social media is the worst place for it, isn't it? Because it's almost, as you've mentioned, the person put their name, but so many people do it behind this kind of mystery, and they'll criticize you for all sorts of things. And it's just, it makes me sad when people get like that, and it's that's bad etiquette. Forget about speaking posh, and obviously it's important that you pronounce words and say things, but don't go and start changing your accent. And as I said, that's bad etiquette to kind of criticize somebody for the way they speak.
I think so. Luckily for me, I've got a thick skin, so it doesn't remotely bother me. But listen, before you go, I mean, you did used to be a royal butler, and you are indeed an etiquette expert. So if you could give me just a couple of tips, if I want to make myself sound a little bit more posh or come across a little bit more posh, what advice would you give to me?
Have you ever seen the movie My Fair Lady?
Oh, I haven't actually. I know
I,
of it, but I don't think I've ever
oh,
watched it.
that's where to go. But don't use marbles. There's a scene where they use marbles. Use Maltesers. That's the first thing. Health and
Teasers.
safety. Yes, because it's about being able to pronounce words, having your mouth full of like marbles. That's what they did in the movie. But I think that'd be a bit risky. I mean, I think in the world today, to be a little bit more posh, it's just slowing your words down if you wanted to. And I mean, you did it a second ago when you did that little introduction earlier on, and that was very nicely done. But again, it takes away your identity, which I think is really important. So I think it's, as I said, it's trying to maybe And this is me saying this because this is what I've had to do, speaking a bit slower and maybe a bit clearer. But definitely don't change your accent. You know, I think that's what makes us all. That's what makes us unique. And no, and
Right.
talking about etiquette, the only other piece of etiquette advice I could give you is when you're drinking tea, don't stick your pinky out. That's another important etiquette piece of advice.
Oh, well, that's very good, because I don't stick my pinky out, so that means that I'm doing well then on the
That means
poshness.
you're aristocratic. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I am going to slow my voice down and say thank you, Mr. Harrold, for your time. Good evening to you. Right.
And thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. There you go. What a load of nonsense. Why do I have to slow my words down and try and, like, be posh? This is what I don't understand about the world of Twitter. I appreciate his advice there. But I got that tweet, and I have to say, why are we all so judgmental on other people? I'm looking at you as though you're really the master of judgmental.
As if I'm judgmental. Look, we live in the 21st century now. I think we need to celebrate these dialects and these accents. And survey after survey actually shows that what people look for the most in any other human being is authenticity. And Michelle, you're one of the most authentic people on television, and I think that's what our guest and others should be looking at.
That's very kind, but I have to admit though, Francis, like I talk, for example, we was talking the other day about smirking, so incentives to stop smirking, and quite a lot of people do think that I'm saying smirking and not smirking. So to me, it's very obvious that the two are very different. So sometimes maybe it can be a little bit hard to understand, particularly as Grant was saying there, when people are talking quickly. Where have you got an accent? Talk to me a bit more.
Right, yeah, I have got an accent.
Where are you from?
I'm from South London. But I'll tell you that I think we're skirting around the issue here. Let's call it what it is. It's a class system, isn't it? Where people are going, is that someone who might be working class? Is that someone who probably didn't go to private or public school? In which case, do we really want them on the TV? Like, for example, I'm fluent in Spanish, and I was in IB.
Do you speak Spanish with a Cockney accent, then?
No, I don't.
Do you slip into a Spanish accent when you're doing that?
No, well, my mum's Venezuelan, so I speak in a Venezuelan accent. And people, number one, they can't quite believe I'm talking talking Spanish. It's almost as if they can't believe someone with my accent can speak another language. Like I've perfected, some kind of weird magic trick.
But I also think, though, just my final point on it, I do think that stereotypes are still very much alive and well, because I think when you hear a northern accent, a lot of people / a lot of southerners think, oh, that person is thick. And that is there is a stereotype, and like to your point, maybe working class plays into that, I don't know. I've got to say, it's never bothered me, and if anything, I've always tried to use that to my advantage. Because if you want to sit there and think I'm thick, then more fool you. I'll overtake you doing whatever it is that I'm doing whilst you're sitting in the corner talking about how thick I am. But I do think, and I've seen it on how many people have contacted me. A lot of professional people have privately messaged me and said that they felt almost pressured into changing their accents, which I think is a real shame.
Yeah.